Hello, this is Ebionite Revival. Welcome. Today I'm going to give a presentation about the song called Arirang. It's a Korean folk song. And the title of my presentation is Could the Korean folk song called Arirang be based on biblical Hebrew, language, history, and prophecy? The contents of my presentation. First is the background. I'm going to discuss some background of the song, and I'm going to discuss some gaps in the research. And then I'm going to talk about the significance of this research. I'm going to explain why it's important to make the analysis of this song from biblical Hebrew. I think this is a big oversight in the research that has been conducted so far. And then I will do some analysis based on the biblical Hebrew and its possible or probable relationship to the words of Arirang. Not only the known words, the understood words, which are in Korean, but the words of the refrain, which are somewhat enigmatic. Then I'll discuss some additional related observations related to this song. Maybe some of those additional observations are somewhat tangential, but I think they are also important. And then I'll give my conclusions. So Arirang is a very popular folk song that has been proven to be at least 600 years old, although it is probably much older than that. Arirang is included twice on the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List, having been submitted for inclusion first by South Korea in 2012 and then by North Korea in 2014. So here is a snapshot from the UNESCO Heritage website. And it mentions that there are some 3,600 variations belonging to about 60 versions. During the lifetime of a typical Korean citizen, he or she probably has heard this song thousands of times in different occasions. What all versions have in common is that they all contain a refrain similar to Arirang, Arirang, Arariyo. Most of the versions also contain, in the second half of the refrain, a hopeful message about reaching the hill of Arirang. The following line is typical for versions of Arirang. Arirang 고개로 넘어간다, which can be translated, we are going to the hill of Arirang. Although some versions express going over the hill of Arirang, that is, Arirang 고개를 넘어간다, I believe that the versions truer to the original are expressing the hope of reaching the hill of Arirang. This would be expressed as Arirang 고개로 넘어간다. Assuming I am right, then, this song is all about the hope of reaching the hill called Arirang. This would beg the question, what is so special about this hill that Koreans found a unifying hope of reaching it and sung it to comfort each other during hard times? My presentation will attempt to answer this question based on comparisons to biblical Hebrew in the context of biblical prophecies. This study is warranted by historical studies done by professors related to migrations of ancient peoples to Korea. Now I'll mention some gaps of understanding. Although there are many theories pertaining to the meaning of Arirang, Arariyo, it appears that most of these theories are not convincing because the explanations don't seem to be comprehensive enough to explain all the lyrics. And most of the time they don't go very far in explaining what is so special about this hill called Arirang. The prevalent theories also do not explain how Arirang has enjoyed such wide appeal for so many centuries. There must be some unifying theme in the song that the prevalent theories fall short of explaining. Perhaps the problem is that some promising pathways of understanding have been hindered or suppressed by religious or ethnic bias. Secondarily, it would appear that some interpretations of the meaning could be avoided for political reasons, as they might be regarded to be too provincial, or regarded as narrowly promoting a particular religion or ideology. As we know, Korea has been a predominantly Buddhist country for most of the past few millennia. But it only started being Buddhist from about the 4th to the 5th centuries. 4th to around the 6th centuries, yes. So Shila dynasty was the last to adopt Buddhism as its official state religion. I decided to explore a unique pathway that seeks to overcome such possible religious bias and the commonly felt need to preserve diplomacy and neutrality in terms of promoting a particular religion or ideology. The pathway I chose is to examine whether biblical Hebrew language, history, and prophecy could better explain the meaning of Arirang, Arario, and the rest of the verses most commonly sung. Next, I'll explain the significance of this research. One reason it is important to make such an analysis is that according to Professor Avigdor Shachan, who is employed at Bar-Ilan University in Tel Aviv, one of the top scholars in the field of the lost tribes of Israel, many members, according to him, of the northern kingdom migrated to the Korean peninsula, among other places. These places include India, Afghanistan, Kashmir, Burma, China, and Japan, as well as Korea. And they migrated to these places after the Assyrian invasions of the 8th century BCE. Now, we can read about those Assyrian invasions in the Bible. Additionally, the theory that Ari means beautiful, while Rang might mean beloved, doesn't explain why the song speaks about the hope of reaching a hill called Arirang. Neither do most of the other theories I've encountered. My analysis will hopefully tie up these loose ends, or these loose threads, so that most of the lyrics of the most commonly sung versions will form a coherent picture. So what can Arirang mean from the perspective of biblical Hebrew? First of all, Hebrew Ari means lion. Ariel is the ancient name for the city of Yerushalayim, or Jerusalem, and rather prophetically, it means lioness of Ale. Now that seems a rather messianic title. So if we read in the book of Revelation, we see that the Messiah, whom many Messianic Jews believe is Yeshua, is actually the lioness of Ale, or the lion of the tribe of Yehuda, or Judah, as it is in English. In other words, Yeshua is the lion of lions. So, in regards to possible Hebraic roots for the Rang part of Arirang, Ranan means give a ringing cry, or give a ringing cry of joy. All imperatives of this verb begin with ran, so it can easily be changed to rang in poetic prose of a song without much loss of comprehensibility. So if if we hear this word Rang, we can kind of guess that it's an imperative form that is being communicated, or at least the first audiences probably would have been able to understand. That's what it meant. Now, forms of this word Ranan occur a total of 54 times in the Tanakh, and 26 of those times are in the Psalms. Here are some examples of those 54 occurrences of Ranan. The first occurrence of this word is found in the 9th chapter of Leviticus, which describes how the people shouted or sang joyfully when the glory of the Lord appeared, when Aaron first performed the sacrifices that Moshe instructed him to do. Moshe's, of course, Moses. So here we can read about it. And we go on. So Aaron came near the altar, slaughtered the calf of sin offering, and so on. And finally, we come to the part where it has the word Ranan. And we can see that it says in verse 23, when they came out and blessed the people, the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. Then fire went out from the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and portions of fat on the altar. And when all the people saw it, they shouted and fell face downward. While the word shouted here is actually a translation of a form of Ranan. You see? It's Wayaronu, and they shouted. So it's a vav. It's a verb. It's a kal stem. Third masculine plural. Consecutive imperfect, right? So that's the first. That's the first instance. Now, there is something called a principle of first instance, or the principle of first occurrence. And this principle says that the first occurrence of the use of a word in the scriptures largely controls how that word is to be understood. So, in this case of Leviticus chapter 9, the first time that anyone is mentioned shouting joyfully or singing joyfully is when the glory of the Lord appeared. And that, I think, is an important theme that's related to the song Arirang. The idea that when the glory of the Lord appears, especially during a sacred ritual, then the people are moved to shout, in joyfulness. So let's go on to Deuteronomy chapter 32. And this is the next occurrence of Ranan. And here, this is Moses or Moshe speaking, not long before he died. And he says in verse 43 of Deuteronomy 32, "Rejoice, you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and he will return vengeance on his adversaries, and he will atone for his land and his people." So that circled word rejoice actually is a form of this word Ranan. It's harninu. So that means rejoice. Okay, it's an imperative form. So another form of this verb Ranan occurs in 1 Chronicles 16, verse 33, where the trees of the woods are said to be rejoicing before Adonai due to the fact he is coming to judge the earth. So here's First Chronicles 16. And it says here, let the earth rejoice. I'm just going to read the underlined portions. Let the sea roar, let the fields rejoice, and the trees of the forest will sing for joy. So all of these are kind of personifications of nature, right? And you see even a parallel structure here. So between these two, what we call couplets, right? These, you see this couplet, two verses, two consecutive verses, and you see kind of a parallel structure. So in the first part of that couplet, you see it says, "Let rejoice the field," right? And actually, that is a different verb altogether. Okay, but in the next line, it uses the word aranan in the form as yaranenu. Okay, so this is, I believe, actually, this form of the verb aranan, yaranenu, is actually the form of the verb in a Japanese folk song, but it's shortened in that folk song, and I'll mention that later. So here are some examples of how inanimate objects, including mountains, are personified in such a way that they are encouraged to sing joyfully. It appears that Adonai's holy mount, called Ariel, would be included in those mountains. And as we will see later, it appears that a Japanese folk song is also referring to the same mountain. Probably. And here is Psalm 98. And it says, shout joyfully to the Lord, all the earth, be cheerful and sing for joy and sing praises to the Lord with the lyre and the sound of melody, with trumpets and the sound of the horn. Shout joyfully before the King, the Lord. And okay. And here finally we get to the part having the Rana. May the sea roar and all it contains, the world and those who dwell in it. May the rivers clap their hands. May the mountains sing together for joy before the Lord, for he is coming to judge the earth. He will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with fairness. So here when it talks about may the mountains sing together for joy, the word there is, of course, Rana. Okay, you can see here. And the form is Yaranenu. Okay. So Yaranenu is actually the most commonly used form of Rana. Okay, so let's go to Proverbs 1:20, which talks about wisdom, and it personifies wisdom. So here it says, wisdom from outside calls aloud in the open squares. She raises her voice. In the chief concourses, she cries out. At the openings of the gates in the city. Okay, so this word here is tarona. Okay, tarona. So that reminds me of this verse in John 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And I believe actually the Hebrew word behind this verse is Elohim, and davar for the word. So if you read some parts of the Bible, it mentions davar Elohim, so the word of Elohim. So I think it's important to make this distinction because this is one of the go-to verses for Trinitarians. But I don't think this verse actually supports Trinitarian dogma, at least the egalitarian Trinitarian dogma. Now, as you know, the egalitarian Trinitarian dogma is the dogma that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are co-equal, consubstantial, and co-eternal. I don't think this verse or any other verses in the Bible actually support that notion. And actually, I think that those dogmas, actually, that egalitarian Trinitarian dogma actually goes against much of Scripture. Because Yeshua even himself, he says that he only does what he is told to say and do by the Father. And the Father is greater than I. The Father knows things I don't know, and so on. So anyway, verse 14 says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So in Hebrew, there are two words that I want to discuss that are both translated God. There's Elohim, and then there's Adonai. Now, we need to make that important distinction whenever we're talking about things such as Trinity. Because Elohim is a word that can refer to anointed agents of Adonai. And Adonai is very clear in Scripture that there is none beside him. Okay, and there's no other God. Adonai Echad, that means he's one. So I don't think we should be surprised that no or very few Hebrew-speaking people actually embrace this Trinitarian belief. It's because it doesn't really make sense in their language. You wouldn't say three persons of Adonai. What do you mean? Adonai himself is a person. Adonai is a person, and that person is referred to as the Father. Okay, so if you want to call him a person, but in Hebrew it doesn't really make sense to call Adonai a person at all, right? Because persons are people, and the Father is Adonai is a spirit being, not a person. So person is a kind of Greek abstraction of a human being or someone with personal qualities. So I'm not sure these abstractions really work. So anyway, that verse in Proverbs 1, it reminds me of this verse having to do with the word, because in Greek, the word translated word, the Greek word translated word is actually logos, and in the Septuagint, this word logos is standing in for three Hebrew words, one of which is davar, which I mentioned. Okay, so there's a twofold use of this term to be distinguished. That's what it says in the Thayer's Greek lexicon. One which relates to speaking, and one which relates to thinking. So this psalm uses the verb ranan to implore the faithful to shout joyfully to Adonai, who is the rock of our salvation. So in Psalm 95, this is a very, very important verse for analyzing this song, Arirang. Why? Because I think in this psalm, they're actually using two verbs that are actually being represented in the song Arirang. And those two verbs would be ruah, and also rana. Okay, so we see this. It says, "Oh, come, let us sing to Adonai. Let us shout joyfully to the rock of our salvation." Well, when it says naranena, naranena. That is a form of the verb ranan. But when it says let us shout joyfully, that is naria, and that is from the verb ruach. Ruah. So here it says the text of Psalm 95 uses two similar words, ranan and ruah. So ranan is Strong's Concordance number 7442, and ruah is Strong's Concordance number 7321, which means to raise a shout or give a blast. As I will show in the next part of the analysis, a conjugation of ruah is likely being used in this Korean folk song called Arirang. So here is the definition provided in Brown Driver Briggs. And it says raise a shout or give a blast with a clarion or horn. Okay, so often instruments are involved, right? So you can see kind of how there is a kind of intensification going on here. Now, one of the trademark characteristics of biblical Hebrew poetry is parallelism, and one form of parallelism is the kind where you have intensification going on in the second part of a two-part couplet, right? So you see, if you're saying at the beginning, you're saying ranan, a conjugation of the verb ranan, which means singing, okay, refers to singing, and then later on, you use a conjugation of this verb ruah, there is a kind of intensification because ruah is also involving instruments much of the time, or horns. So it's definitely an intensification. Okay, it can just refer to shouting, I suppose, but it often also involves instruments. So you can see how the human voice is now being joined with instruments or percussion instruments and things like that. Okay, now, as I mentioned before, one of the occurrences having meaning related to Arirang as well as Yaren Soran appears in Psalm 98 verse 8, which translates to "Let the mountains sing together." Okay, so in the song Arirang, it mentions mountains, right? And probably even the name Arirang, the name of this hill called Arirang, is actually referring to that holy mountain, which of course will be full of rejoicing once the Messiah returns. And that's something I believe Jews, Muslims, and Christians can all share in terms of belief, right? Pertaining to future events. I'm not, of course, promoting any sort of ecumenism. I'm opposed to that, but I'm just saying there is a common belief that when the Messiah comes, we will be rejoicing, And in Hebrew, they call the Messiah Mashiach, right? And in Arabic, Al-Masih, and Christians call him Christ. So there will definitely be rejoicing. But the problem is that now there's only fighting, and people I don't think they really even realize why there's so much fighting, because they haven't done these kinds of deep analyses that might actually help them be more critical, of the reasons why they're fighting. Okay, the most common form of ranan occurring in the Hebrew Bible is yaranenu, which means let them sing for joy, or they shall sing for joy. So this appears important because an Israeli diplomat to Japan, he explained that the refrain Yaren Soran of a particular Japanese folk song called Soran Bushi, which has been sung by fishermen and sailors from ancient times means sing joyfully and ascend. Yeah, sing joyfully, ascend. Or ladder, I guess you could say, to put it in literal terms. This might indicate that Yaranenu has been shortened to Yaren in this song. So Yaren means in Hebrew, sing a song. That's what Eli Cohen, the Israeli diplomat to Japan, Israeli ambassador to Japan, told Japanese film crew. And in Soran in Hebrew means a ladder. I think currently they use the word sulam, but maybe an earlier form was Soran. And of course in Japanese and Korean, they don't really have they don't distinguish between an R and an L sound. So sometimes that same letter could have an R sound as opposed to an L sound, but they have one single letter representing both. So it's quite understandable how Soran could have morphed from Sulam. So it's possible Sulam could have morphed to Soran at some point. But maybe Soran was an older form. I haven't done that level of research yet. But let me just play for you this clip from this nationally televised program, and it talks about these connections. So I will now present English translations from the portion of the transcript from the nationally televised Japanese program. This segment was related to the ancient Japanese folk song Yaren Soran.
日本と古代イスラエルを結ぶその暗号は実は民謡の中に隠されているという。
야렌 소란 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 하이 하이
ソーラン節は北海道の日本海沿岸に伝わる民謡。浜に近づくニシンの群れを待ち望む漁師の歌である。だがこのヤーレンソーランという言葉、一体どんな意味があるのか。
いや、まだ小さい時から聞いてるからそういうような不思議ってことはわからねえよね。昔からどういう意味って言われるとちょっとね。
地元の人でもわからないヤーレンソーランの意味。それを意外な人物が答えられるという。その男は東京にいた。
この番組はメナード化粧品、積水ハウスとご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
あ、こんにちは、どうも。こんにちは、こんにちは。はい、こんにちは。
出迎えてくれたのはイスラエル駐日大使エリコーヘン氏だった。ヤーレンソーランの意味を知るという。果たしてその意味とは。
ヤーレンは歌をします。歌をします。心を楽しなります。ヤーレンです。
ヤーレンとは歌を歌って楽しくなるという意味だという。
スラムははしごです。
そしてソーランははしご、つまりヤーレンソーランには歌を歌うとはしごの2つの意味があるようだが、一体どういうことか。北海道に残るニシン小屋で我々は大使の言葉にあった驚くべきものを発見した。
そこの階段登ってあれはしごですよね。はしご
大使の言葉にあったはしごがなんとニシン小屋にあった。その昔漁師たちははしごを登り、浜に近づくニシンの大群を天窓から眺め、互いに喜び歌い合ったという。 そして誕生した歌がソーラン節。では一体なぜ歌詞にイスラエルの言葉があるのか。ただの偶然なのか、それとも。
私は日本に来てからその文化や習慣がイスラエルと極めて似ていることに驚きました。
日本とイスラエルにはさまざまな共通点があると大使は語る。例えばこのお祭りから聞こえてくるエッサという掛け声。
エッサ、同じ言葉はエブライ語が意味があります。意味は、持ってきます。or carry, pick up, yes, carry it。
コーヘン大使によると、みこしを運ぶ時の掛け声エッサはなんとエブライ語でも運ぶという意味が一致している。
日本文化は分かりません。少し多分分かりません。とてもびっくりしました。ミステリーです。
Okay, so he mentioned these words, Yaren and Sulam. The way he pronounces it is actually much closer to Sulam than Soran. But I noticed when you look in the lexicons, Sulam, this word Sulam, which is translated ladder, is actually related to that word Salah, which means to exalt, right? So when you exalt someone, you're lifting them up, right? So it has a common theme with the ladder, because when you climb the ladder, you're going up, right? So those are very important connections, I think, because when they are singing these songs, I'm sure those symbolic meanings are important, and that's really those are really the only reasonable explanations for why these songs are so enduring. They're so meaningful to people because it reminds them of something so important. Maybe also not only important in the past, but important in the future. So, is it really as mysterious as Ambassador Cohen thinks? Why there are these Hebrew words in the Japanese folk songs? I don't think it's really as mysterious as he thinks, because, as I mentioned, there is that Professor Avigdor Shachan, who works at Bar-Ilan University, and he's found lots of evidence. Lots of evidence for migrations of Israelites, ancient Israelites, to Japan. There's also a Japanese Christian named Arimasa Kubo, and he also found a lot of this evidence. And Professor Shachan's mentor, named Joseph Heidelberg, he found over 2,000 current and ancient Japanese words that are identical to Hebrew words. And he also examined Japanese histories, official histories, and found that there is so much similarity between their histories, like the Chronicles of the Kings and so on, and the Hebrew Bible, that it cannot be just mere coincidence. So I found these comments in a video online on YouTube, and here it says that the song was a prayer to God by the Jews, and that's a theory, and that this prayer is a prayer that hopes to reach the promised land. And another comment, it mentioned that the DNA, the D3 haplotype, is from the east side of the Mediterranean Sea. They have some, they share some common DNA. All right, so Jeremiah 17. Okay, I'm going to Jeremiah 17 because I'm going to now discuss what arario might mean. from the perspective of biblical Hebrew. Now, Jeremiah 17 is a warning to Yehuda. And it says, because of Yehuda's sins, my mountain, okay, and all of Yehuda's possessions will be taken by the enemy. Right? As I mentioned in part 2, Psalm 98 and 95 appear to offer clues that might help us figure out what Arariyo is meant to express. So, as mentioned before, Psalm 98 encourages mountains to sing joyfully. And in the book of Jeremiah, there is a Hebrew word that might be the one from which the part of the word Arariyo may have derived. Harari, which means my mountain. So here is the translation, O mountain of mine. And Adonai says that due to the sins of Yehuda, which is the kingly tribe, all of Yehuda's possessions and my mountain will be taken by their enemies. So Psalm 98 and 95 offer those clues. Okay, so here it says, let the hills be joyful. So, and so Psalm 98 encourages mountains to sing joyfully. Right? Awesome. Okay, so this is the Hebrew word being translated, my mountain. Okay, and it's Harari. So, Arariyo. That's the second word of this Korean folk song, Arariyo. So I believe it probably came from this word, Harari. Especially if the name of the mountain that they're hoping to reach is Arirang, right? So it seems there is a relationship to Harari, right? Okay, and then here is this verb, ruah, which means to raise a shout or give a blast, right? So there is a Hebrew word, hariyu, which is a conjugation of the verb ruah, which means raise a shout or give a blast. Okay, so there are 12 occurrences of this conjugation in the Tanakh, and they're all in the context of something celebratory. So it's clear that this is expressing celebration, right? It's an imperative to give celebration. And Psalm 101 says, make a joyful shout to Adonai, all you lands. Right? This is a very famous psalm, and many Christians sing songs related to this psalm. Not only Christians, but also Jews. So, but if you read that in the Hebrew, you will see this word, hariyu. Okay? And I believe, therefore, that it is possible that Arariyo could be a contracted or concatenated form of Harari and Hariyu. Okay, so it appears that the expression Arariyo may well have come about by poetically concatenating the Hebrew words Harari and Hariyu. Now, how did they do this? Look at the last two syllables of Harari, see Ari, and then look at the first two syllables of Hariyu. So that Ari is the last part of Harari, but it's the beginning part. It forms the first two syllables of Hariyu. So the last two syllables of the first word become the first two syllables of the next word. So then you get Arariyo. Now, of course, if you do the research, there is something called the H dropping. Okay, so this is a common phenomenon in Semitic languages such as Hebrew. You'll find instances of H dropping. So it shouldn't surprise us that these H sounds have dropped out, especially if they want to alliterate with Arirang or Ariel, or if they want to have a wordplay on this ancient name Ariel, which is the name of the Temple Mount. So this combination may be understood as meaning my mountain raised a shout, like if we paraphrased. So in nearly every version, we also see this line right after the words Arirang, Arirang, Arario. Arirang 고개로 넘어간다. Arirang 고개로 넘어간다, which means we are crossing over to Arirang Hill. Thus, the use in this song appears to be a sort of ironic use of Harari, which appears in the book of Jeremiah as a stern warning that Adonai gave Yehuda. The lyrics of Arirang, in contrast, appear to be envisioning a time when my mountain will be taken back from the clutches of the enemy, and thus will again belong to the tribe of Yehuda and other tribes that he rules. Okay, such a belief that the Temple Mount will be recovered by Adonai's elect is well founded in the prophecies of the Bible. Okay, does the structure of the refrain have characteristics typical of biblical Hebrew poetry? According to textual critics such as Robert Alte, author of The Art of Biblical Poetry, two of the identifying characteristics of biblical Hebrew poetry are wordplay and parallelism. So, as I mentioned, the ancient name of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount is Ariel. So the Korean folk song Arirang seems to have both of these features, parallelism and wordplay. As I mentioned before, the ancient name of the Temple Mount is Ariel, and thus the name of the hill in this Korean song Arirang may be a wordplay on this name Ariel. The alliteration between the phrases Arirang and Arario is also typical of Hebrew biblical poetry. It's called wordplay, right? This kind of alliteration. The parallelism of the refrain is readily apparent when we provide paraphrases based on the biblical background of the words discussed in the first three parts of the analysis. We can paraphrase as follows. Tribe of Judah or Yehuda, give a ringing cry of joy. My mountain, raise a blast. So of course when somebody says Ari, it can be referring to Yehuda, or it can be referring to even to the lioness of Ale, right? The lion of all lions, by extension, right? Because he is the kind of exemplar for the tribe of Yehuda, right? He's the king of all kings. So, of course, this can have many dimensions of meaning, many facets. We are crossing over to Yehuda's joyfully singing mount, so we can paraphrase it that way. So, let me make some additional related observations. There's a verb ra'ah, which means to see. Okay, so this verb is also related to this this hill that used to be called Ariel. Okay, because one of the older names of Ariel is Moriah. Okay, so another name for this Temple Mount, Moriah, means seen by Yah. Okay, and here is this is from a website called I think it's called I forgot the name of the website. Sorry, Abram Publications, I think, or something like that. And it says Jones's Dictionary of Old Testament Proper Names determines that it derives from the verb ra, meaning to see, and translates it as visible of the Lord. So it's kind of expressing this this belief that one is being supervised by Adonai, or one is being protected by being watched over by Adonai. Yes. So here is Strong's exhaustive concordance of this word Moria. It says here, seen of Yah. And there is a conjugation that is similar to rang, okay, but it's ram, okay, and this is what it says in Genesis 32 verse 2. Jacob said when he saw them, okay, so when he saw them, this is ram, okay, so he named that place Mahanaim. It's I think somewhat similar to the name of Adonai in Korean, Hananim, right? Hananim. But anyway, I think that's something for another discussion. And here, one of the names of Adonai is Elohim Yireh. Okay, Elohim Yireh. Yireh means what? One who provides, right? Or one who sees to it. Okay. So more generally, Hebrew verb ra'ah is a verb having a deep and multifaceted meaning. This profound word is used to speak of Adonai's provident care, oversight, and protection. In fact, it appears that Mori Yah is named such because Yah is the one who saw to it that a lamb was provided to take the place of Yitzhak when Abraham was told to sacrifice his own son in order to test him. So, Elohim Yireh. Okay, so this is, of course, related to Moriah, because Moriah is the mount that he climbed in order to sacrifice his son Yitzhak. You know, and on the way there, Abraham says, rather prophetically, Elohim will provide to himself the lamb for a burnt offering. Okay, so he's telling his son Yitzhak this to comfort his son. Okay, don't worry about it. You know, he's going to provide the lamb. Okay, you're not going to end up being that sacrifice. So, so you see Yireh, you see Moriah, you see this were another conjugation of Ra'am. Okay, these are all related to this Temple Mount. Okay, so this is not a coincidence. I think it's really not a coincidence that you see the song Arirang. Okay, and I think people, some rabbis who listen to this song, I think they will clearly recognize that those words are from Hebrew. One of the names of Adonai is thus suffixed with this prophetic word. He will provide. Yeah, as I mentioned, Yireh. Okay, I believe this is a Yehavach Yireh, Yehavach Yireh, or Yehwa Yireh. Okay, because in Tigray, in Ethiopia, the name of Adonai is Yehwah. Yehwah. Okay, so Yehwah Yireh. Okay, so it's very. I think it's a very we call it musical name. Yeah. And another interesting observation I'd like to make is that Harare in the Oromo language, which is of course also spoken in Ethiopia, Oromo. It's one of the Omotic languages. Harare means mercy of. Okay, so here are the some of the lyrics from this song called Ganaman, which is performed by Ijole Abdi Bori Choir, and it belongs to the Jamo Bethel Makane Jesus Church. And it means mercy of in the Oromo language. So therefore, it seems difficult to rule out the possibility of yet deeper layers of meaning to this song. Now, why would they have something from Oromo in a Korean song, or something that could have a deeper meaning in the Oromo language if the Oromo has no relation to Korean? Well, let's explore that later, but I'll read the lyrics in English, the translations of the lyrics. Every morning your mercy is always renewed. It's what awakens me from my sleep. It has held me in love even if I get weary. Your nature is the same. Your thought never drops, leaves me. The abundance of your mercy, I cannot express it in words, knowing how to. It's not something that I can repay, knowing the cost calculated. You are not only there when I am at my best condition, even when it gets dark on me, even when I hate myself, supporting me on the outside, holding me on the inside. The wicked wind cannot take me. Your mercy has put me on the path by rescuing me. It has restored my lost life, supporting me on the outside, holding me on the inside. The wicked wind cannot take me. The abundance of your mercy, I cannot fully express it in words. It's not something that I can repay, knowing the cost calculated. Jesus, it is your grace that makes me live. It became my refuge and hid me. My joy and life are because of you. It has set me free. Your name is a name of salvation. So interestingly, the word arari means, as I mentioned, interestingly, okay, sorry, I have the same heading in both of these slides. Okay, so here are the original Oromo lyrics, okay, and here on the left side is the chorus, okay. It says, Jesus, your mercy breaks one's chains, your mercy removes sins, your mercy has called me to you, your mercy has healed and made me stand, your mercy breaks the chains of humanity. Your mercy breaks one's chains. Your mercy removes sins. Okay, so in the Oromo, that would be, every time it says your mercy, it would be ararike. Okay? So now, why would this be related? Could it possibly be related to the word Harari, my mountain? Seems so, because how does mercy, where does mercy come from? It's a kind of a derivative of the holy mountain, isn't it? Where the sacrifices were made. So of course, mercy is a product of the holy mountain. You can look at it as a product, right? So I don't think it's a coincidence that Arari means mercy, and so. Since the Oromo word referring to the Heavenly Father is Wakayo, it appears that Arario has an additional layer of meaning. If we consider the possibility that Arario could be a contraction for Arari Wakayo, which means mercy of Adonai, right? So I believe it is important to take note of the fact that Oromo, like Chinese, belongs to one of the very few tonal family of languages. The only other place besides the Horn of Africa and China where such tonal languages have been found is Peru, to the best of my knowledge. And since Chinese and Korean have much vocabulary in common, we cannot easily rule out any historical relationship between an Omotic language such as Oromo and the Korean language. So here is the definition of Wakayo, okay? And here it says, is the single deity of monotheism, which of course is called Adonai in Hebrew, or Elohim, right? Of course, anyone critical of God's mercy should take the lesson to heart. This is a translation of a saying in the Oromo language. And here are some examples of how Wakayo is used. Okay. So I found that there may be other theologically related puns, ironies, paradoxes, and intentional ambiguities. So, for instance, it doesn't seem sheer coincidence that some of the most popular versions contain the following line, in light of the fact that it was largely due to the fact that many fell into Baal worship, that people were struck with plague and exiled from the promised land. So, in Korean, this line is 나를 버리고 가시는 님은 심리도 못 가서 발병 난다. And this can be translated as follows. The one who abandons me and goes his own way will be stricken with foot blight or with foot plague before reaching 10 ri. Now, ri is a measure of distance that is roughly equivalent to about 393 meters, according to one source I saw. Now, that's an interesting turn of phrase there, 발병, because there's a place named in the Bible, Baal Peor. Okay, so 발병, meaning foot blight, I think may well be intended to remind the audience or the singers that those who go their own way after abandoning Adonai will experience the curse they have deserved as a result of Baal worship. Now, why were the Israelites, some of them, expelled from the promised land? Is because they fell into Baal worship. That is a common theme in so many of the prophetic writings. Doesn't even need to be mentioned, right? Anyone who has read the Bible to any extent will have recognized that it was largely due to Baal worship or Molech. Molech is a kind of a pseudonym, alter ego of Baal. So it is because of this Baal worship that they were expelled in the first place. That's why my mountain and all of Yehuda's possessions were taken by the enemy. Okay, and that's of course I think it is probably it's at the core of the song Arirang. That's what I believe. The loss of that mountain and the restoration of that mountain to the faithful and righteous when the Messiah comes. So the biblical narrative indeed says those Israelites who were seduced into Baal worship at Baal Peor were struck with a plague. So it would appear that Baal Piang could be a word play on the name Baal Peor. So here's this entry from Jewish Encyclopedia. The name Baal Peor is the name of a Canaanitish god. Peor was a mountain in Moab, whence the special locality Beth Peor was designated. It gave its name to Baal, who was there worshipped, and to whose service Israel, before the entrance into Canaan, was for a brief time attracted. The god is himself also called Peor by abbreviation. It is commonly held that this form of Baal worship especially called for sensual indulgence. The context seems to favor his view on account of the shameful licentiousness into which many of the Israelites were enticed. But all Baal worship encouraged this sin, and Peor may not have been worse than many other shrines in this respect, though the evil there was certainly flagrant. Okay. So, okay. So next I'm going to do I'm going to discuss another possible layer of meaning here. The one who abandons me and goes his own way, or the one who leaves me or goes his own way, will be stricken with foot blight. Okay, so a paradoxical irony may also be present in this line, because while ri can indicate a measure of distance equivalent to about 393 meters, this word can also indicate an administrative district. As the Bible tells us, the administrative districts of the tribes of Israel were determined by clans descended from the 12 sons of Yaakov. Perhaps this line is a reference to the fact that when Yeshua commissioned his apostles, he told them, "You will not finish going through the cities of Israel until the Son of Man returns." How many cities of Israel were there? I mean, how many tribes at least? There were 10, right? Or maybe some people think the sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh were also tribes, but they're not among the 12 sons of Yaakov, right? But anyway, that's a side issue. Here Jesus says, you will not finish going through the cities of Israel until the Son of Man comes. So yeah, it seems related. It could be related to this line that says, you will not, you before you reach the 10 cities, you'll be stricken with a foot blight, okay, foot plague. Another possible irony in this line could well be related to the Messiah's mission, as Yeshua was probably born on the feast of Sukkot, as many Messianic Jews believe. The time he left the Father's side would have been in the winter, probably at a time close to the winter solstice. So here's a snapshot of an article by Messianic Jews, how Yeshua was born on the Feast of Tabernacles. The word literally tabernacled in human flesh on God's holy day for tabernacling. Okay. So in Greek, that word would be skenoo, okay? And that's the word that John uses. And it actually means to pitch a tent, right? Or to tabernacle. So, of course, this is a very theological theological statement to say he dwelt among us. Actually, the word is he tabernacled among us, or he pitched a tent among us. Okay, and so how is it related to winter? Well, in the Ethiopic book of Enoch, the name of the angel that is charged with managing the winter season is named Narel. So the Korean expression Narel can also serve as a metaphoric pun, referring to the time that Yeshua left his father's side before he suffered the foot ailment by dying a sacrificial death on the cross. Now his feet and wrists were pierced, right? Probably his heel and his wrists when he was crucified. And since Yeshua prophesied that his disciples would not reach all the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes, then it follows they didn't reach all those cities before he died. Yeah. And of course, also in Genesis, when Adam and Eve, or Chava in Hebrew, when they sinned by eating of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, Adonai says, I will put enmity between you and the serpent, and your seed and the serpent seed, right? And your seed will crush his head, and he will bruise your heel. He will bruise your heel. So basically, Adonai is prophesying that there will be a foot ailment suffered by the Messiah. So this is why I think these lyrics they weren't just about some lovers. Okay, I think these lyrics are very theological in nature, and they have so many layers of meaning probably. So here is the name of the angel that controls the winter season, Narel. Okay. And the Korean word, it says 나를 버리고 가시는 님은. Okay, so and he left his father's side during during winter. If he was born during Sukkot, he definitely left during the time that Narel is in charge. The season in which he's in charge, right? So the one who abandons me, yeah. Okay, one more possible connection. There could also be a play on the Hebrew word shibri, which is a masculine form of the word, meaning my seven. Right? So there could be a reference to the millennial reign of Yeshua, which, based on the so-called millennial day theory, which understands that the biblical narrative and prophecies teach that Yeshua's 1,000-year reign will occur after 6,000 years of human rule. This reign will start after 6,000 years of human rule. So in this song, the possible ambiguity in meaning of leaving Adonai could well be intentional, because in the case of the idolaters, they will not be able to reach Adonai's 7th millennium. While for the disciples commissioned by Yeshua to evangelize the cities of Israel, they will also not reach all those cities before the millennium, which will occur after the 6,000 years of human rule. Now, if you want to find evidence, supporting evidence for the millennial day theory, I propose that you look at Genesis chapter 6, verse 3 for starters. It says that the period allotted to Adam, which can be translated humankind, is 120 Shana. What is a Shana? Well, it's usually translated years, but according to Strong's exhaustive concordance, that word can also be translated a whole age. Shana can refer to a whole age. And what is the most important age in the Bible? It's the Jubilee cycle, right? 50-year cycle. So if you multiply 120 times 50, then the result is 6,000. And I found that this year we are actually in the year 5997. I discussed that in another video about the reconstructed calendar of Enoch. So in 2027, Gregorian year 2027, or Ethiopic year 2020, we're going to be in the year 6000 to 6001. Okay, it's going to turn 6001, Enoch year 6001, around September of 2027 Gregorian year. So another verse I think that supports the millennial day theory would be Hosea chapter 6 verse 2, and where Hosea says, after 2 days he will revive us, he will resurrect us, right? Why does it prophesy that he will resurrect us when that whole passage is about being wounded and all that? It seems to be referring to the Messiah, right? But it's basically saying that the Messiah's death is a kind of prefigurement. Death and resurrection, those are prefigurements of our own death and resurrection. So all those followers of Yeshua who died in the last 2,000 years, they will be resurrected in the third millennium after Yeshua's death, right? And that happens to be in the 2027, because the Jubilee year, the last Jubilee year that was observed, started in 574 BCE. So that this means that during Yeshua's life, the Jubilee year that occurred in his life was in 27 CE. So the next one will be in 2027. And of course, you probably are aware that when Yeshua started his ministry, he entered the synagogue and he read from the 61st chapter of the book of Isaiah, or Yeshaya, right, in Hebrew. And the 61st chapter of Yeshaya talks about how the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and it's about the favorable year of Adonai. The favorable year of Adonai is one of the ways of expressing this Jubilee year. Jubilee year is the year in which basically an economic reset happened during the Jubilee year, right? Land was returned to their original owners, debts were forgiven, right? This was kind of a culmination of the Sabbath years of the land. We had 7 Sabbath years of the land called Shemitah, and they were concluded by a Jubilee year, Yovel in Hebrew, right? And I'm sure even the word Jubilee is based on this Hebrew word Yovel, right? So so this when Jesus read from Isaiah chapter 61 at the start of his ministry, he didn't even read that part of the second verse where it mentions the day of vengeance of Eloheinu. Why does he not mention the day of vengeance of Eloheinu? It's because he knew that sort of Jubilee year was still in the future. And I believe he was talking about when he would come as king to reign for 1,000 years. And that I deduced what will happen shortly after the eclipse of August 2nd, 2027, which is the eclipse exactly matching the prophecy of Amos chapter 8, verse 9. To the minute, it's matching it. Okay, so it's all very clear that Yeshua's messianic reign, his millennial reign, will begin in Gregorian year 2027, which will be Enoch year 6001. After Yeshua read that part of the favorable year of Adonai, right? The favorable year, he sat down and he told the audience, this has been fulfilled. As you were hearing me read from this scroll, this has been fulfilled. That means that first Jubilee year has started, right? And that first Jubilee year, the favorable year of Adonai, this is when Adonai showed great favor, ratzon and chen, right, to those people who were ill and those who needed healing, the blind who needed to see, right, the lame who needed to walk, and the people who were demon possessed, and etc. And he taught the spirit of the law, so that we could be freed from extraneous laws that Pharisees made, thus shutting the door of heaven. That's what Jesus said. That's what Yeshua accused them of, shutting the door of heaven, right? And how were they shutting the door of heaven? It's because they were not the people that they were controlling, right? And they were controlling them. They were not able to think of anything except following those Pharisaical oral laws. And they were often even putting more focus on following those that were so difficult to follow, rather than following the written laws that Moshe gave us. So anyway, so Yeshua, during the time he came, when he came the first time, he came to show us favor, right? Show us that it's the favorable year of Adonai. Okay, and to bring justice in the mercy sort of sense, right? A merciful sort of justice, right? And the second time when he comes, he will come to bring justice in a more shall we say, wrathful sense, or in terms of a more, what would you say, recompense, right? He will bring recompense, not only merciful justice, but he's going to punish the evildoers, and he's going to give to them exactly what they deserve. All right, so some additional related observations. Speaking of Han people, it seems to me that Han may have originated as a sort of acronym for Haran, Abraham, and Nahor. So the Koreans call themselves Han Minjok. And I believe that it's actually from these names, Haran, Abraham, or Abram, and Nahor. And these are the three sons of Terah in the book of Genesis. Now, of course, we also have Han people in China. We have about 1.3 million Han people around the world. And I believe actually this might be a very reasonable possibility that they are all descended from at least one of those three brothers, right? Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And it's interesting to me that in Korean there are names. Han is a surname, is one of the surnames in Korean. An is a surname, and so is Na. So you can put any one of those names first, or second, or third, and you'll come up with a Korean name. So we can have An, right? Abram, Haran, Nahor. You can have Nah, which is Nahor, Abram, Haran, and you can have Han, right? Haran, Abram, Nahor. So I think actually those names are indicating where most of their ancestry is from, okay? Or originally, or a very long time ago, okay? So in order, like maybe if you have more ancestors from Abraham than the others, then you have second most from Nahor, then you would be calling yourself An, right? Anyway, so that I think is a big possibility, but maybe others don't think so. But I have found evidence that it very well could have been from Sumer or Shumer, where the Korean people originated. It's because Sumer collapsed in 2334 BCE, while Korea, according to official Korean histories, was founded in 2333 BC, which would be the very next year. And in Korean, the word meaning evil, Akan. So what happened to Sumer? They were invaded by the Akkadians. Okay, so naturally, and the Sumerians also built a kind of Great Wall of China, an earlier version, right? In order to protect against invasions by races of giants. Okay, and I think that even at that time the Sumerians were calling them Akan Saram. Okay, wicked people, because the giants are associated with wickedness in the Bible, right? So I think it's also related to Akkad. Okay, Akkad, people from Akkad might have been called Akan Saram, right? Maybe that's just referring to their origin, but later it came to mean wicked person because those are the ones who invaded Korea. This is my theory anyway. So in the book of Genesis, Nahor and Haran are said to be living in the lands of the east. Okay. So again, this is a supporting piece of evidence that Haran and Nahor were from the lands of the east, okay, east of where Abraham was living. And then we have the story of Yaakov meeting Rachel at the well. Well was a kind of a social gathering place where women and men could meet and talk, right, and get to know each other. Rather prophetically, Rachel tells Yaakov that the flocks cannot be watered until they're gathered. I think it's prophetic because if you look at the messianic prophecies, for example, the one from Yeshaya, chapter 40, it mentions, like a shepherd, he will tend his flock. In his arm, he will gather the lambs and carry them in his bosom. He will gently lead the nursing ewes. So, and in Revelation chapter 22, it says, "Then he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of God and of the Lamb." And goes on, and it says, this is the tree of life, and the river of life is for the healing of the nations, right? The fruit, yielding its fruit every month. It's for the healing of the nations. So clearly, these are what Rachel said here, right? The flocks, until the flocks are gathered, and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Okay. The rolling of the stone, that's a theme related to the resurrection, right? Yeah. And in Hebrew, the word is galal, right? Galal. That's interesting because in Korean, we have the word gulida, okay? Gulida means to roll. Yeah. So I think actually, actually the word Korean word meaning conclusion is kyolon, and I think actually even these words are coming from Hebrew word galal, which means to roll, right? So I think definitely there is a relationship between the resurrection, what Rachel said, and these messianic prophecies. Okay, so and they are all, I think these are all related to the song Arirang, because when the Messiah comes, there will be great rejoicing in his holy mountain. So indeed, all the relevant messianic prophecies indicate that he will gather his flocks from all the parts of the globe and provide them the waters of life. Right? So, thus, Genesis 29 passage about Yaakov's dialogue with Rachel may well be an example of remez, which is a sort of prophetic hint in a historical narrative. Okay, so in Encyclopedia Britannica, it says remez, it means hint, and it is in reference to typological or allegorical interpretations. What is a type? It's a kind of prefigurement, right? A symbol, right? A metaphor. So what Rachel said, I think, in Genesis 29 is actually a typological statement that's been recorded by Moshe, because Moshe was a prophet, right? And he knew, for instance, that a prophet like unto me is going to be your redeemer, is the one that you must listen to, right? He says this in Deuteronomy, right? And that Elohim will put his words in that prophet's mouth, right? So that's exactly what Yeshua says about himself, right? He says that I do not say anything except what the Father instructs me to say. I don't do anything except what the Father instructs me to do. So clearly he is referring back to those prophecies by Moshe, when he says, I will put my words in his mouth, right? And I think also Moshe, when he recorded Genesis 29, he was thinking of that, those things that even Enoch prophesied of, right, related to the Messiah. Because I'm sure Moshe was probably very intimately familiar with the teachings of Enoch or Enoch, right? And he would have known all about those messianic prophecies concerning the future Son of Man, right? Now Enoch was, I believe, to be the first Son of Man, right? He was the first perfect human, right? And in the book of Sefer Hayasher, it actually says that Enoch ruled over 130 kings for 243 years, at least in one of the versions of Sefer Hayasher that I read. And so he would have had something that prefigures, in typological form at least, the Messiah who will rule the world, right? He ruled the known world at the time, right? Which consisted of probably 130 kings, right? And he taught them the ways of righteousness according to the book of Enoch, right? So in the same way, when Yeshua comes, he will teach us again the ways of righteousness. He will rule with righteousness, okay? Tzedek. And another connection I found with Korea, probable connection. Sarah had a servant girl named Bilhah who bore a child named Dan, who was sired by Yaakov. Perhaps this the founder of Korea, bearing the title Dangun, was indeed a Danite from Sumer. Incidentally, the Gun part of that title may also have originated from Hebrew word kun, which in Brown Driver Briggs' Hebrew lexicon indicates may be used in a sense that is figurative of the throne. That's what it says, figurative of the throne. So kun can be referred to the throne. So of course you have these royal people, the founders of Korea. It's natural that they would be called Dan, who has the throne, right? Dan, who is on the throne. Okay, so they're called Dangun. Perhaps the reason Korea was founded in 2333 BCE, as I said, is related to the fact that the Sumerian civilization collapsed just 1 year prior. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Okay, so I found another possible relationship. I've come to believe that the Korean name for Almighty, Hananim, has more than a single layer meaning associated with the fact that Hana means one, which is probably a reference to the fact he declares himself to be Echad, meaning one. And thus Hananim would indicate his exclusive oneness, since the Korean word Hana means one. Okay, so so Hana is probably related to this word Echad, right? So we're basically saying one being, right? Hananim, right? And it's interesting because Nim is similar in sound with the Hebrew, what we call plurality of respect, right? Elohim, Hananim, okay? So they kind of, you can see possible relationship there. And I think I figured out another biblical reason. The Hebrew verb chana means to decline, bend down, or to encamp, which the Bible says in so many ways that Adonai does as a reflection of his loving and protective character. So here's the Hebrew verb chana, okay? And let's look at some uses of chana. Here are some notable examples of how this word is predicated of Adonai and his angelic representatives. Psalm 34 verse 7 says, "The angel of Adonai encamps all around those who fear him, and the angel delivers them." So, and here's another example. Zechariah chapter 9 verse 8 says, "But I will encamp around my house as a military garrison." That's my translation. That is via a host of angels. Okay? Because Adonai Tsevaot, right? It means the Lord of hosts, right? That he's a commander of these hosts of angels, right? Tens of thousands of angels. Because of him who passes by and returns. Okay? So it's to keep those who visit the people of Adonai, those who visit them, to keep them safe, right? Because you cannot have a thriving people unless good people, are able to visit them, right? And no oppressor will pass over them anymore. For now I have seen with my eyes. So now I'll give my conclusions. I hope that this initial research will inspire others to further build on it with additional reflections. I've attempted as much as reasonably possible a comprehensive and detailed study of what might be the possible meaning of the refrain found ubiquitously in every version of Korea's most popular folk song called Arirang. I've employed a new lens, namely biblical Hebrew language, history, and prophecy, in order to analyze the themes of understood Korean words, as well as the few words of the enigmatic refrain that no Korean I've encountered appears to be able to explain exactly. As a messianically oriented believer in Yeshua, I believe Adonai has led me and guided me in this process. So I must give him all the glory and credit for his guidance and encouragement when I faced obstacles in the course of doing this research. My prayer for the Korean people is that they will recover the mission for which their forefathers composed such an amazingly meaningful song, that it serves as such a comfort for them, that they sang it whenever they encountered the many difficult times they have faced in their history. As a transnational adoptee of Korean background, I include myself among those who have endured such difficult times as a part of what it means to be Han people. May we recover the profound meanings of our most cherished and historic folk songs, just in time for the Messiah's soon return. Amen.